A Texas man accused of driving his SUV into a group of pedestrians near a Brownsville homeless shelter that attends to migrants, killing 8 and injuring 10 more, was charged with 8 counts of manslaughter on Monday.
Are you a United States citizen?
At a news conference, Brownsville Police Chief Felix Sauceda said the driver, identified as 34-year-old George Alvarez, lost control of his vehicle, but added that investigators had not ruled out that the crash was intentional.
Through the investigation, it was found that the SUV ran a red light, lost control, flipped on its side, and struck a total of 18 individuals. The driver of the vehicle, later identified as George Alvarez, had attempted to flee the scene after impact, but was held down by several individuals on scene. George Alvarez is a Brownsville local with an extensive rap sheet. He has been formally charged and arraigned with 8 counts of manslaughter, 10 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon.
The city of Brownsville, on the border with Mexico, is one of the places expecting an influx of migrants when COVID-era restrictions under Title 42 expire this week. Sauceda said investigators were working to identify all the victims, some of whom were Venezuelan migrants, adding that his department was working with the Venezuelan government and other embassies. In a statement on Monday, the Venezuelan government called for an investigation into whether it was a crime of hate and xenophobia. Sauceda also said investigators were waiting for toxicology reports to determine if Alvarez was driving under the influence.
A White House sit-down between President Joe Biden and the Republican and Democratic congressional leaders set for Tuesday aims to put an end to the U.S. debt ceiling standoff and avoid an economic disaster. The Democratic president is calling on lawmakers to raise the federal government's self-imposed $31.4 trillion borrowing limit without conditions and avoid a crippling default before the end of May.
We're not a deadbeat nation. We pay our bills.
Biden last week criticized House Republicans for threatening not to raise the debt limit unless Democrats agree to steep cuts in the upcoming budget.
I'm going to reiterate to congressional leaders that they should do what every other Congress has done. That is, pass the debt limit, avoid default. And as I've said all along, we can debate where to cut, how much to spend, how to finally move the tax system where everybody begins to pay their fair share or continue the route they're on, but not under the threat of default.
But Republican House of Representatives Speaker Kevin McCarthy has said his chamber won't approve any deal that does not cut spending to address a growing budget deficit. Tuesday's meeting marks the first time Biden and McCarthy have met since February. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, top Senate Republican Mitch McConnell, and top House Democrat Hakeem Jeffries will also join the talks. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre on Monday refused to call the scheduled discussion a negotiation.
We should not have House Republicans manufacturing a crisis on something that has been done 78 times since 1960. This is their constitutional duty. Congress must act. That's what the president's going to make very clear with the leaders tomorrow. Congress must avoid default without conditions, as they did 3 times before in the last administration.
Analysts do not expect an immediate deal to avert what would be a historic default, which the Treasury Department has warned could come as soon as June 1st. Forecasters warn a default would likely send the U.S. economy into a deep recession with soaring unemployment.
Closing arguments were heard for Donald Trump's civil rape trial, where former Elle magazine advice columnist E. Jean Carroll accused the ex-US president of rape and defamation. A lawyer for Carroll argued on Monday that Trump's absence from the trial shows that, quote, he did it. Lawyer Mike Ferrero told jurors, quote, he never looked you in the eye and denied raping Miss Carroll, adding, quote, you should draw the conclusion that that's because he did it. 79-year-old Carroll sued 76-year-old Trump, alleging he raped her in a Manhattan department store in 1995 or 1996, and then defamed her by denying it happened in an October 2022 post on Trump's Truth Social platform. In that post, he called her claims a complete con job and a hoax and a lie. Trump waived his right to testify at trial and opted not to present a defense, gambling that jurors will find that Carroll failed to make a persuasive case. In his closing argument Monday, Trump's lawyer Joe Tacopina said Carroll's inability to recall the date of the alleged incident made it impossible for Trump to defend himself by citing an alibi, and called the case an affront to justice. This is an absolutely outrageous case, Tacopina said. Two of Carroll's longtime friends had testified that she told them about the attack shortly after it occurred and said they believed her. Carroll, who was seen leaving the New York court, is seeking unspecified monetary damages. Her lawyer told jurors the lawsuit is not about the money, but about Carroll getting her name back. The 6-man, 3-woman jury is expected to begin deliberating on Tuesday.
Cooler weather on Monday brought some relief to firefighters battling widespread wildfires in Western Canada, but officials warned it could be months before they're brought under control. A state of emergency was declared in Alberta on Saturday, with more than 700 firefighters deployed. Christy Tucker is the Alberta Wildfire Information Manager.
But we're not out of the woods yet. We're expecting to warm up towards the weekend, which could raise fire danger levels again, and we anticipate the wind direction could shift, which will change how we tackle these fires.
There are nearly 100 active wildfires burning in Alberta, and around a third of them are considered out of control. More than 29,000 people have been evacuated from their homes so far. Nearly 300 patients in long-term care facilities have also been moved to safety. Alberta's Premier, Danielle Smith, on Monday announced that the government will be providing one-time emergency financial aid to residents displaced by the blazes.
Every adult who's been evacuated and displaced for 7 consecutive days will receive $1,250, along with an additional $500 for each dependent child under age 18. These payments will help evacuees pay for accommodations, food, and other basic necessities.
The unprecedented wildfire season has shut in at least 3% of Canada's energy production. The country is the world's 4th largest crude producer, and about 80% of its oil comes from Alberta. The fires have primarily affected light oil and natural gas producers who shut in operations as a precaution.
Russia's military hit Ukrainian cities with its largest drone swarm attack in months on Monday, just a day before Victory Day, a celebration of the Soviet triumph over Nazi Germany in 1945, and the most important day in the Russian calendar under President Vladimir Putin. The drone swarm is the latest in a renewed Russian air campaign launched 10 days ago. This is damage from the strikes done to apartment blocks in Kyiv. A resident, Volodymyr, said his wife and child would have slept right there. According to Mayor Vitaly Klitschko, Russia fired 60 Iranian-made kamikaze drones at targets in Ukraine. 36 targeted the capital, all of which were shot down, he said.
Right now we're in the apartment, one of the buildings. Today was one of the massive attack to our hometown. 5 people was taking injuries, 2 people right now in hospitals, but nobody has died. It's very important.
In Bakhmut, the Ukrainian government says Russian forces appear to be making a final push, hoping to capture it ahead of the May 9th holiday and deliver the only prize for Putin in a costly winter offensive. The battle for the besieged city has been one of the bloodiest of the 14-month war. The medics aboard this makeshift ambulance say they retrieved 6 wounded soldiers Monday, most of them from Bakhmut. As the wounded are taken from the front lines, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky further cemented Ukraine's break with its Soviet past. Speaking to the nation on a hill overlooking Kyiv, Zelensky said the old evil had returned, this time waged by a modern Russia. Zelensky said he had submitted a bill to Parliament officially making May 8th a day of remembrance and victory, while May 9th, Russia's Victory Day, would become Europe Day.